Wildlife Hospital. My name is Tash. I'm going to be taking you on a behind the scenes tour today, which is going to be very exciting. What brings you guys here?
We've come for a holiday. We've come from the UK.
Oh my gosh, how long have you been in Australia for?
Is it 4 days now? Five.
How are you feeling? Do you feel like you've gotten over the jet lag?
Yeah.
Just?
Didn't take long. I think if the flight weren't so messed up, I think I'd have been fine and couldn't sleep on the plane. So
Yeah, that's good then. Well, hopefully we've got some nice weather coming through. I know it's been pretty rainy the last couple of days, but hopefully the sunshine can kind of wake you guys up and get you in the spirit. But yeah, welcome on in. So I'm Tash. I'm going to be taking you around. I work for the Wildlife Warriors here at the Australian Zoo. So that is the non-for-profit organisation that Stephen Terry started up in 2002. So it is our mission to protect wildlife and wild places all over the world. Are you guys going into the zoo today?
yeah, we'll be going back in there. We've been every day since we've been there.
Oh my gosh.
that took us 3 days to do the whole lot.
I'm so glad that you had that time, because I feel like you do need at least 2 days to 3 days to see it all. So that's amazing.
I think we overestimated how big it was.
Because even just if you walking to Africa, that takes 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Well, beautiful. In that case, the bigger non-native animals that you might have seen, like cheetahs, tigers, elephants, rhinos, they have a really big part of our conservation projects that we stand to support overseas. However, this is our biggest conservation project, our wildlife hospital. So this is where we look after all of our sick, orphaned, injured native wildlife. So all of the patients that we're going to see today are from outside of the zoo.
Yeah.
They've all been brought in by the public, so all over Southeast Queensland, which is really amazing. We're open here 24/7 hours a day, 365 days a week. We don't turn any patients away, we don't charge any patients. So as you can imagine, it's a massive lifeline for our native animals here in Australia. We treat over 10,000 patients each year, which is pretty cool. We're just transitioning out of one of our busiest parts of the year, which is what we call our trauma season. So that's our spring and our summer months. Typically, we're having a massive influx of patients because it's breeding season, it's mating season, our parents are feeding their kids. Also, humans are out and about enjoying the sunshine, so we can see a lot of interactions in that department. We see an influx at this time of anywhere between 60 to 90 patients coming through just each day in triage. Whereas at the moment, as the weather is starting to cool down a little bit, our patients are slowing down, so we're seeing somewhere between 30 to 50 patients coming through each day. So it's still quite a lot of patients, and every day is a different day. So I'm really excited to show you guys around. It looks like we have a beautiful koala you might see on this table here, who's under a general anaesthetic. So we'll be able to see some pretty cool things. If we turn around here, you'll see this is our Mammal ICU. So this is where we look after all of our possums, koalas, kangaroos, echidnas if we have any of them in. It's typically one of the slower rooms in the building because these guys are naturally nocturnal, so they're usually pretty sleepy at this time. Also, some of these guys are in a pretty critical state, which is why they're in this ICU ward specifically. We do have on the board here quite a lot of possums in. So we've got all sorts. We've got short-eared possums, brush-tailed possums, we even have ring-tailed possums. It's really common for our possums, you might see on the board, for them to come in with something called dermatitis. So that's a really common, very nasty inflammation of the skin. Humans get it as well. Sometimes we do see our poor little guys coming in without any hair on them at all because of how irritated their skin is. But we give them a lovely pamper day, we take away the pain and that sort of thing. So really amazing to have that. We do unfortunately see a lot of human interaction. That's probably going to be one of the most common things we see today. So our patients who have been hit by a car, it's a very, very common thing we see. Also entanglement in pollution or pollution ingestion, that's more so with our sea turtles, seabirds. We do also see a lot of domestic animal attacks, so your cats and your dogs, due to the fact that they're not being kind of kept indoors overnight time, things like that. So we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But all the more questions that you want to ask, the better. No silly questions here, shout them out. But yeah, let's head on down this way. So we're just passing over here our operating theatre. So this is a fully functioning operating space. We can do all sorts of surgeries. The most common thing that we do is a reproductive surgery on the koala. So that cat has some relevance to a really nasty disease called chlamydia that I'll talk a little bit more about when we're outside. But it's always set up and ready to go because you never know when you're going to use it. We can also do things like a stitch up of a sea snake. We can do a scope of a giant sea turtle, which is pretty cool. And if you turn around here, we do have some beautiful photos of Steve's mother, Lynn. So she was an animal carer, and she surrounded Steve with wildlife his entire upbringing. So she was a massive inspiration behind this hospital opening up. Unfortunately, she did pass away before we got to really see, before she got to really see where the hospital is now. So I always love to point out that legacy.
I think that was only slightly, quite smaller when she was about. I'm a big fan.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I've got him tattooed on the back of my leg.
You do not? Oh my gosh! That is amazing! Did you watch him ever since you were little?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, well welcome. Have you been to Australia before?
No. This is a very big trip. Obviously, we come from the UK, so this is something we've always wanted to do.
Oh, that is so amazing. I'm so glad you're finally here.
Yeah.
Well, feel free then, as I said, ask any questions that you want. I'll try to answer everything that you possibly have. But yeah, this is such an important part of the legacy, so I'm really glad that we get to have
What is the most animal you see?
Oh gosh. Our biggest animal that we get in, or like the most common animal, are our birds. But in saying that, we have such a big facility dedicated to our koalas. So even though they're not the most common patient that's presented, we do so much work with them. But we also see a lot of possums. But I would say birds are our number one.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, coming around this way. So this is my personal favourite room in the building. This is our nursery. So this is where we look after all of our young and orphaned wildlife. So if you come around this side, you'll probably see a gorgeous little bird staring back at you. We've got a kingfisher on the second incubator, and then a beautiful lady.
Oh, look, I've been looking for one of them, haven't I?
So the kingfisher is a part of the kookaburra family. You might see they've got this beautiful long beak that helps them to kind of snatch up little insects and all that sort of stuff, and they are beautifully coloured. Some of them have bright yellow tummies and big blue wings. They're just gorgeous. And then obviously our rainbow lorikeets are incredible birds that we have here in Australia. You might see that he's got a little bit of a funny kind of tilt to him, so it's really common with our lorikeets. We're seeing something called that we've named lorikeet paralysis syndrome. It's pretty nasty. They present with different levels of paralysis, so maybe not being able to swallow food, not being able to use their wings, having this awful tilt to them, to not being able to fly at all. And it's a bit of a mystery. We don't know exactly what's happened. We think that maybe it's something that they're eating, so a toxin that's flowering in the spring and the summer seasons. We can recover them. It's just a matter of what stage they present in. So hopefully this little guy will be doing really well. So here, as I said, is where we look after all of our orphans. So a lot of the time these guys have unfortunately been separated from mum, really at the age where they should still be in mum's pouch or in mum's nest. We do see lots of our birds, but we also get to see and hear our kangaroo, koala, possum, joeys, even little things like microbats, flying foxes, squirrel gliders, bandicoots. It's lots of fun in here. So what we try to do is really simulate the environment of what it would be like if they were still with mum. So we have our humidity cribs, our incubators and hand-sewn pouches, hand-crocheted nests sometimes if needed, and our vet nurses are here 24/7 to provide constant feeding, toileting, cleaning, that sort of thing. We see a lot of the time our babies, when they're on their own, they're really vulnerable to domestic animal attacks. They can't get enough food for themselves, they're very emaciated. We see them, trees. It's a very confronting room, but also it's beautiful, the work that we're doing. At this point in time, our biggest goal is to keep these guys as wild as possible. That's our goal with all of our patients that come in, because we want them to grow up and then have the best shot at being released out to the environment that they came from. That's our biggest goal. And that's where those carers come in, just like Steve's mum. We have this amazing network of volunteers who are specifically qualified in native wildlife care. So they'll have a setup very similar to this at home, and we bring our babies in and we stabilize them, but then we pass them on to the carers where they act as the stepping stone, and they get to raise the babies until they're at the best age of being released. So that is really important for little ones like our kangaroo joeys, who should be with mum for up to 2 years in the wild, so that relationship with the carer is really, really vital. Alright, well, do we feel like heading behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Beautiful, follow me. another beautiful photo of
Before we leave, I'm going to pass some of the name on. Thank you.
Of course. Alright, so before we head on in, I wanted to point out this little structure here. So this is a really important part of our history. So it was the original wildlife hospital. Before that, it was an old avocado packing shed. So this whole property was a big farmland. So Steve and Terry had a massive vision in 2004 and they repurposed it to be the first hospital. Obviously, it's a little bit smaller than what we're working with now, which we are very grateful for. But now it houses a really important part of our operation, which is our animal rescue team. So these guys have the best job in the entire world. They're on call all day long. They'll receive calls from the public who are really worried about our wildlife all over southeast Queensland. And they're very dedicated to their jobs. They will jump in rivers, they'll jump in the ocean, climbing trees, stop traffic in the middle of the highway. They'll do whatever they need to do to stabilize our wildlife and bring them into the hospital. So we're very thankful to them. Now this here is our ambulance bay, so this is where the animal rescue team will drop off all the animals that they've been rescuing throughout the day. You'll probably notice as we head on through the hospital that it's set up a lot like a human hospital, which is pretty cute. But if you yourself have an animal that really needs to be looked after, you'll bring it through to our reception room. So follow me in.
Thank you.
That's okay. So this is our reception area. So this is where you'll be looked after by our beautiful receptionist, Robin, over here. And we're going to ask you to fill in one of these forms.
Put that out.
Yeah, I think mine is This is called our accession form. So this is where we get all of the important parts of the story about the animal that you've brought in. The most important thing we want to know is where exactly did you find your animal? Again, that's because it gives it the best shot of being released back out into the wild.
See ya.
So sometimes we can see that mom and dad, they come down from trees, they reunite with their babies. So that's really
Every day's a
important.
weekend.
Another thing that's really special is that you get to name the animals yourself if you bring them in, which is really special. So one of the last animals that we had in was an echidna called Doug, which is pretty cute. We've also had a possum called Olive, and another possum called Jeff again. Beautiful. So once you're nice and comfy here in reception, we will radio for our triage nurse who will bring your patient through to triage. So follow me through. You're more than welcome to line up on this wall here. So this is our triage area, which is essentially the waiting room for all of our patients that come in throughout the day. So we don't actually have any patients in triage at the moment, which is a really good thing. We like it when it's quiet.
They're all in my ward, that's
They're
why.
all in your ward, running around like, ah!
Yeah. I've got someone very special here that I've just spent about 5 million years trying to catch.
I was wondering what you're doing with that.
This is one of the species of microbats that we find here in
Aww.
Australia. So this is called a Gould microbat, so it's got really long ears. And he is in very good health. He can fly very well. He was hanging on the back of someone's screen door. And not sure why he was doing that. Just finding some place to roost during the day because they're nocturnal. Yeah, he's trying to bite me. But yeah, that's him.
Are their teeth very sharp?
Very sharp, yes. And Lucivirus is present in bat species in Australia, so that is a form of rabies.
Yeah.
So very careful, gloves, and we're all vaccinated for rabies as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And yes, Lee is right. You can have a little look in here. There's a lot going on. So this is obviously the nursery, but in these cages here is where we can also have other birds that don't necessarily have to be orphans. The patients that do require that around-the-clock care that our nursery does provide. So if we do have a really sick, older bird or even a bat or something like that, we can bring out in here. So we've got a lot going on in here. Now, if you turn around here, this is our consult room. So let me have a little look to see if we've got anyone. We have a cage of someone, I'm not sure who. Feel free to peek through. But this is where we get to pop all of our patients for the first step of a diagnosis or investigation. So we put them in here, we shut the door, and then we let them display to us their natural behaviour. So we see how they're going with their flying, walking, crawling, slithering. We've got little obstacle courses set up so they can really show off. And we're looking for indicators in their behaviour, like are they bright, alert, reactive, quiet. We can give them a body condition score, all that sort of stuff that really helps us figure out what's going on. And yes, definitely keep your eyes peeled for some of our beautiful patients of the past around the walls. Alright, let's head around this way. So this is our treatment room. So as you can probably gather, this is pretty much the central hub of the hospital here. This is where we get to do all of our basic operations and procedures, our follow-ups as well. Who's this little munchkin?
This is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah, this is Joe. He's actually kind of an interesting guy. So he came in for sitting at the base of a tree, just generally being a bit unwell. When I went to take x-rays, I saw he had a plate in his arm and he's got one of our ear tags. So he's actually been here before. We're just trying to find the information about why he had a broken arm repaired. But yes, he'll be going back into our ICU on a drip. He's got a little bit of recovering to do. But so far he's going okay. Yeah.
He's like a big boy.
He's recovering from his anesthetics. He's just a bit sleepy still.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Thank you so much.
That's alright.
So as you can tell, here is where we get to do all sorts of operations, procedures. Obviously the more complicated things do take place in the theatre. We can really start that investigative work. So when we get a patient through, we can check for mobility, we can take bloods, look at x-rays, clean wounds, do stitches, do bandages, all that sort of stuff. And as you can probably tell, let's go around here. I believe it's another koala. But these blue tubes here, they give a general anaesthetic. So if we're doing anything invasive to our patients that doesn't require us to see their kind of reactions, we like to put them to sleep just to alleviate any stress that they might have. Considering that they are wild animals in this kind of environment. If we turn around here, you'll see this is the system that we use to keep everything nice and organized. So this is what our day has looked like today, particularly in our triage. These are all the patients who have come through today. These guys are our patients who have been with us for a little bit, or they're staying overnight in the ICU, things like that. We have our triage set up kind of like a traffic light system. So if we do have a patient that's in a bright red, which thankfully we don't have, that means they're in a pretty urgent state. We need to see to those straight away, whereas our orange cases are those we're all going to hang out in triage for a little bit while we see to our urgent cases. You might as well see some of the cool names coming through. A favourite of mine today is Tony Hawk. Big Mama is also amazing. It's very fun to look at the names.
Oh, smell nice.
Alright, this is our X-ray room here. So
Famous X-ray room.
Look at all of our bones to see if they are working properly. We also get to take a look at any foreign bodies that might have been ingested. Again, what I was saying earlier, it's really common for us to see that sort of thing in our sea turtles, our seabirds. There's lots of fishing hooks, fishing line, fishing lure, due to the fact that we are disposing of them correctly, which is a really confronting thing to see here. Also with our snakes, they've got a really good sense of smell because they're really high up in the food chain. But it does mean that sometimes they smell something that smells yummy, so they decide to eat it, and it's not actually something they should be eating. So we do have had snakes who have come in with rat traps that they've swallowed because they smell like rats. 2 dog harnesses because they smell like a little fluffy dog that smelled yummy. But yes, they do get themselves in quite the pickle. Now this is our pathology lab. So this is where we get to take a look at all of our bloods, urines, fecal samples, having a look at anything that might be causing harm that we can't see with the naked eye. So as you can imagine, it's a very, very important part of the process here. So we're very lucky to have all of this amazing equipment. And when we turn around, we have 3 doors. So these are all of our ICU wards. So we had a little look at our mammals. Straight ahead are our reptiles. So So you're more than welcome to have a little look in. I think someone's on Welcome with the roof. But here's where we get to have all of our cold-blooded friends. We have our poisonous and venomous and non-venomous snakes. We have reptiles of all sorts. We've got freshwater turtles, lizards. We even can have little amphibians, little frogs coming in here.
Do you know what snakes you've got in there at the moment?
Let me see if I can. Do you have a venomous snake to the right? My eyesight is terrible. Oh, cool. So we've got a little small-eyed snake to the right. so that is a somewhat venomous snake, which is pretty cool. This is probably why you'll see we've got a big red sign that says venomous snake. That's because obviously we do have some pretty nasty biters here in Queensland. So we do have a pretty cool protocol to follow if we do have our venomous snakes in. We get to work with our reptile team or our rescue team, and they handle them in this beautiful way and kind of entice them to crawl up this little tube. So you can then just pick up the tube and walk around with them. So it's pretty cool. I'm happy that we got to see that because I wanted to know who's in that box for a while. Alright, you're more than welcome to peek your head through here as well. This is our bird ICU. So this is where we can have all of our birds from those rainbow lorikeets. We can have our birds of prey, our crows, magpies, pecarolons, all sorts of things. As I was saying earlier, birds are our number one patient that we get in here. So they make up 70% of our population, which is pretty cool. One of the amazing things that we do here, especially with our birds of prey, because they're very used to finding that food that's moving and catching it, we actually have to tube feed all of our birds of prey to keep that, they're nice and healthy and full, because we can't really stimulate that for them.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool thing that we get to do here. Alright, following down this way. This is where the magic happens. This is where we do all of our food prep. So a very important part of our recovery for our patients here is that healthy, balanced, nutritious diet. So you'll be able to see in the fridges, we've got everything from our fruit and vegetables, then we've got our crickets, termites, mealworms, rats, meats, fish, baby formulas, all sorts of stuff. We have these pretty adorable recipe booklets that kind of show us all of the patients that would be coming in, what we can make for them, how to make a flying fox smoothie, and a kidney slurry, all sorts of stuff.
This must be an amazing job to have.
Every time I come in here, when it's food prep time, it's so fun. It's like a kitchen. It's like, chef, no chef. They're prepping, they're making it look beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, oh, love. We also have a lot of native flora and fauna outside. So for a lot of our native birds, our possums, they require a little bit of beautiful foliage or botanics. So we can go up there and pluck that, which is what they would very much be eating out in the wild. And then those fruits and veggies, like apples and corns, is really just to help them because usually they're in a pretty emaciated state. This is our break room for our volunteers. Alright guys, so welcome to the back of house of the hospital. So this is where we focus on a lot of our rehabilitation, particularly for our beautiful koalas. Before we get too far, though, I thought we might be able to peek into the back of our bird and reptile ICU wards. This is where we get to have space for our patients who require a little bit more wiggle room. So we can have water birds here swimming around in paddling pools, that kind of thing. And same goes with our reptiles. We do have... Did you want to have a look at it now? All good, thank you. Thanks for showing us the paper. So we have these big tubs here which our turtles can swim around in if need be, which is pretty cool. Now straight ahead here, this is one of the newest and coolest parts of our hospital. This is a koala ward that was donated to us by a very famous Canadian comedian called Seth MacFarlane. Now he made the TV show Family Guy, if you guys know of that one.
Yeah.
So he donated us a very generous sum of money after our 2019 to 2020 bushfires that were a really awful time for us in Queensland. So we lost almost 70 million hectares of land, almost 20% of our koala populations. So he donated us this money in honour of his late mother Perry, who loved koalas. So So we wanted us to be able to have something specifically for our koala populations, as well as those natural disasters that we are very commonly having here in Queensland. So this is the Perry McFarlane Koala Ward. If you come this way, you'll probably be able to see a beautiful little patient hanging out in one of our ICU wards. So this provides us with some incredibly special ICU wards that provide this beautiful, natural, stress-free environment. A lot of the time we can have our more sensitive patients coming in here. He's scratching his back. Hello, gorgeous. One of these rooms, the floor can open up and fill with water. So if we have a platypus, it can hang out with us here, which is pretty cool. But the other amazing thing about this is that in the event of another natural disaster, which unfortunately is very likely here in Queensland, this can turn into its own fully functioning mini disaster response hospital. So we would be able to take a massive influx of patients in, target all of our resources directly onto them, all experiencing similar wounds and traumas. So we like to call it a backbone facility for us. He's really scratching. That's so funny, that's so cute. Same goes with this pretty cool piece of technology here. I had a younger kid earlier this week who said, "Oh my gosh, is that a slushy maker?" And I said, "No, it's not. This is a hyperbaric chamber." So this is modeled off of human medicine. It is just a lot smaller, and it's really cool. What it does is it kickstarts our regenerative cell cycle by releasing highly purified oxygen. So if we do have patients who are really recovering in their recovery, really struggling in their recovery, so bad burns, bad smoke inhalation, that kind of thing, we can pop them in here for an hour each day, and we see incredible results in their recovery, which is so special. So it's not every day that we get to use it, but to be able to have such a specialized and expensive piece of technology for our little creatures is just incredible. So straight ahead in front of us here are our long-term rehabilitation facilities for our koalas. So the koalas here will be recovering from all sorts of things. Most commonly we see those traumatic incidents of being hit by a car, being attacked by a cat or a dog, as well as the very common chlamydia virus. So it's a very nasty virus that we're seeing in our populations of koalas in southeast Queensland. It's a very contagious disease, which is meaning that these guys are actually endangered now here in Queensland, which is very scary. It manifests in some different ways, but the most common thing that we see is a really bad urinary tract infection, which we call cystitis. That goes on to infect their reproductive organs, and it leads them to be infertile. And these guys only give birth once a year to one baby, so it's really important for them to be reproducing. And when you compare that rate to those who are infected, yeah, it's very imbalanced. We also see it coming through in a really nasty conjunctivitis of the eye. That leads to blindness, and a blind koala out there in the wild is very, very unfortunate. Unfortunately, in both cases, it does lead to death. So we do have an amazing research initiative here at the hospital who are trialling different vaccines and researching different vaccines, but it's such a nasty virus to kick. We haven't actually gotten anything confirmed just yet. We can treat it with a big dose of antibiotics, but it does do quite a lot of, I don't know, their gut biome is very, very sensitive, so they take quite a hit with it, so that's why they stay with us for so long. We're very grateful in this case. We have it separated by those who are infected and not infected, so we can keep things nice and clean and sterile. We do have about 34 koalas recovering with us here in long-term rehab, which is amazing.
Sea turtles.
Alright, and straight ahead up here, you might see that we have a eucalyptus plantation that's running across the perimeter of our property. So this is a really special part of the hospital because it's actually the final step of rehabilitation for our koalas. So once they're looking really good in their long-term sheds, this is a little friend hanging out here. Yeah, once they're looking really good here, we get to place them at the base of these trees, where they get to climb up all the way to the top and just act as a wild koala for several weeks while we monitor them. And once they pass the wild koala test, we get to bring them down and release them. So we do have at least 4 koalas in the plantation. I always say it's so special to spot them, so definitely keep your eyes peeled. look for the forks of the trees, typically quite high up, and you're looking for kind of like a grey blob. But it's very exciting. I get very excited if we do see them. Yes, you can more welcome to keep looking while we walk through turtles. So this is our final rehabilitation facility, which is our sea turtle and sea snake recovery centre. More welcome to have a little look in to see the beautiful patients that we have recovering with us. So we have turtles from all over the Southeast Queensland. And we have the active flavor of the also our green sea turtle. It's very dangerous turtle. However, there's biggest population here in Queensland. So over here at Hub 1, I just want to confirm the name. Wow, he's a green sea turtle. He's a pretty small sea turtle, which is usually indicative of their age. So he's probably around 10 years old. He came in from the rotor. That's a really common thing that we see with our sea turtles. These guys are a little bit of parasite in the belly, and if they can infection where they're filled with gas. They float to the surface of the ocean and they can't dive down to eat food, they can't keep their energy levels up, so they get really emaciated and they're beating themselves. So if you look on the wall here, we have lots of floaters, lots of beach, that kind of thing, and unfortunately a lot of the time this has something to do with human interaction, which is pretty sad. Turtles in our big pool. Yay!
This is one of my favourite animals,
Really?
koala sea turtle.
Oh my god! This is our big pool.
Oh, look.
This is the final step of the rehabilitation for our sea turtles. So if they have been cleared for release, or maybe they just need to get their energy levels up a little bit, we'll pop them in the big pools. They can swim around, they can socialise with each other. We have these little structures on the floor here that resemble what it's like to be in and around coral. They have little bristles on the underside so they can rub up their little shells. We do have beautiful green sea turtles in at the moment. Oh, hello.
Aww.
These guys were both floaters as well. I think maybe one was beached and one was a floater.
I think as was it Russell Crowe donated them a
Yes.
machine to go down.
Yes. They're so majestic to watch. And cut for a breath, I believe.
Aww.
You might be able to smell that these guys are recovering in completely natural seawater, which is really beautiful. So we get big shipments of it in each week. It fills up our tanks and then it circulates around all of the wards and the pools, which is pretty cool. Can you see her? Julio is one of our big boys. He is there.
Oh yeah, right at the top.
He's a big boy. It's just so lovely. He loves his blue gum. Julio came in with a wound on his arm, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So he had a wound on his arm and had a bit of swelling. So he's gone up to, he stayed in the wards for a while they treated him, and then he's come up to the big trees to see how he goes. He's doing amazingly. He's in he loves blue gum, so he's got all these 3 trees all to himself.
Oh,
And he is just loving it. He's up nice and high, he's moving around a lot, it's showing us that
It's amazing
arm's
for a
going
little
really
thing
well.
that will climb all that way up.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a long way up.
All right. And the weather's Koala's been pretty gnarly the last couple of days. He's confident. He's up there, he's swaying around.
Oh, that's cute. That's the best, I think. Oh.
So this is our rainforest. So it's a multi-purpose facility that we like to use here for all sorts of different reasons. During our 2019 bushfires that I was talking about, we had over 400 flying foxes at the same time hanging out with us here. But now we're using it for my personal favourite reason, which is koala tending.
Oh.
So we have all of our babies in here. You might see one just straight ahead. It's a little bit hard to see. If you kind of walk around, just like
Oh yeah, right at the top.
so all of these guys would have come to us with a thing without money.
Can you see him?
Yeah.
And now they're at that really important age where they need to start socializing with each other to learn those vital skills of being a wild koala. And once they're old enough, we'll get to pop them in our plantation. And again, if they pass that test, we'll release them, which is just so amazing. They're very awkward in here. I haven't figured it all out yet.
I did have a koala cuddle yesterday, and I watched it jump from the keeper to the tree.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Their ability to jump is crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. Sorry, it's a little bit squishy on the grass here. Alright guys, if you want to head through that door
Yep.
and find somewhere nice that we can wrap up, maybe just in front of that window there.
Yep. Window.
Well, that was the whole hospital. You might see this little guy waking up from this anaesthetic. So we pop them in a cage where they'll be hugging a nice tight pillow to feel like they're on a tree. And then when they wake up, they get the munchies really badly. So we like to fill their little enclosure up with eucalyptus. They can munch away. But yeah, everything that you saw today, guys, was really Steve Owen's dream. I mean, he wanted us to have this really raw and unfiltered view into our wildlife, and he knew by having these glass windows, doing hospital tours, you'd probably see some pretty gnarly stuff, but you'd also see some really beautiful things, and that was his intention, just to make it so clear as to how our behaviour has this direct impact on our wildlife, and the tiniest conscious decisions that we can make have this trickle-down effect, you know, being conscious when we're driving at dusk and dawn, keeping our pets in at night time, being really conscious as to how we dispose of rubbish, picking up rubbish when you see it, no matter where you are, no matter if it's inconvenient, just do it. You never know where it's going to end up. And that can change so many of the stories that we saw today. So you guys as well coming on this tour, that really helps us out, and it's so amazing that you guys care and can come along and learn. So thank you so much.
He's actually part of the Wildlife Warriors.
Oh my gosh, amazing!
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing. It's just so incredible. It's really important for this this kind of stuff and engagement. So it's such an honour to keep his legacy going. And thank you guys so much. It was so much fun to take you
Thank you.
around.
That was very good. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank
No
you.
worries at all. See you.
Lovely. Bye. Thank you.